Justice. To sum up democracy, I'll definitely say justice.
Fairness.
Government.
Choice.
Instead of being a democracy that most people will live in, it's an oligarchy, right? So oligarchy being like most governed by the few, or by the rich, I would say.
Cooperation.
Lies. Equality.
Democracy is spelled wrong.
Illusion.
Power.
Freedom.
Voting.
Vote, yeah, vote. Everyone gets an equal chance to vote.
Like, young people are used to not having their voice heard very much. So I think when you grow up having that experience, you don't really feel like it's going to change.
A lot of youth feel like they're not equally represented in the political platform.
There is no relation between the youth and a party leader that connects them and makes them want to vote.
They only focus on a certain demographic. They don't want to talk about the youth. They don't want to see anything about the youth.
And I think that's part of the erasure of youth and voting, is the fact that they're nowhere to be seen in platforms. They're nowhere to be seen except for snazzy pictures alongside politicians. They're nowhere. And not because they're not there. We're here in abundance. It's because we're being ignored.
Politicians aren't trying to involve youth, and youth aren't trying to get involved with politicians. It's kind of a two-way street. If they tried to get involved with politicians, politicians would see that the youth have a voice. If the politicians acknowledge the youth's voice, they'd get more interested.
You learn it in grade 10 in civics class, but beyond that, you don't get much more knowledge of it in high school. So there's nobody to really keep you engaged if you're not around people who are politically involved.
If we had education from early on, then everyone would be involved, because it would be a mandatory thing that you take, and even if you choose to stray away from it and not really care about who's in charge, still you should have the basic understanding.
Teaching young people that they do actually have a way of moving things forward in politics as a young person, and encouraging them every single day to get involved is what we should be teaching our young people about democracy.
I think around, I guess, grade 10, when I was doing, oh shoot, I forget what the course was.
Grade 10 law. When I was in grade, 10? Something?
Honestly, I don't remember what class I learned in politics. It might have been in geography.
It's been too long. I forget what it's called.
I learned about civics in grade 10, which was half a credit. Well, I was taught, never learned anything.
I think teaching relevant information that is actually going to benefit us going into voting and going into adulthood that we can actually use, I think that's definitely what we should strive towards. Our opinion would be more valued because we would actually have some experience and know what we're talking about, as opposed to just saying that youth have certain demands and they don't know the realisticness of how we're going to achieve that. Now they have the education, so now they can quite figure out how to build a plan and get what they want out of things.
The school system isn't driving home the importance of being civically engaged and having your voice heard in the grades that matter. It's kind of forgotten within those period of years between civics class and actually being able to vote.
If they make it a full course in grade 12, then maybe oh, I'm voting this year, maybe I can actually learn something from this, and I can basically voice my opinion as soon as I learn what I need to learn from this class.
Not only is it bad for the political system because then our input isn't valued, but it's also bad for us because then we go into adulthood having no experience.
If we don't have engagement for the youth now, sooner or later all the youth that weren't engaged now are going to be older and they're not going to still be engaged. Then we still have more young people who aren't engaged, and basically we're just going to start losing our democracy.
Whether you vote or not, I feel like it wouldn't really make such a big of a difference.
He's lazy. I guess it's kind of out of the way. It's not really important. I don't really find it important.
It's it's a popular belief that youth don't just because of their age and they might not see the bigger picture and how strongly politics really does affect them. But I know I'm a youth and I care, so I definitely know there are youth out there who do care.
I've never voted because my address has always been not the same on my ID.
If people could know, what are they going to get, what are they going to lose by voting? Because yeah, I'm too afraid to vote.
A lot of people have negative feelings towards voting, but for me, I feel like you can't complain if you don't vote, right?
And once the youth realize how much power they have and how much change they can make and how much their voice holds a purpose, then I think amazing things will happen.
Yes, I vote. I vote because I still think it's important. I know I don't see the changes that I want still, or the representation that I want in the political parties, but I still vote. Last time I voted, I actually declined my ballot.
If I'm not pleased with the people that are on the ballot or anything that they're bringing to the plate or to the table, then why am I going to choose one of them? It's a form of voting to not vote.
If you give up your right to vote, you're giving up almost all your rights, I feel like. I think declining a vote would be more official and effective than just not going out and voting at all.
Oh wow, you're gonna cast your first vote. Okay. Just gotta go to the booth, poke a hole, and drop it in the slot. It's not a big deal really, but like that's what I mean, right? Like a lot of young people think it's not a big deal up until something happened, up until the people that you don't want to be in power suddenly in power. Then you're like, see, I wish I would have voted, things like that. So yeah, voting is a big deal.
You might just be one number in the system, but there's a lot of people like you with similar thoughts, similar opinions, and if you all just take the initiative to vote the way that you like to vote, or just vote in general, a lot of things can change and they can benefit you, because people will know to say, oh, look at all these new young people that are voting. Maybe we should actually pay attention to what they want. We should go to them when we're making decisions. We should involve them in the development of our communities.
As youth, we should care about politics because it affects us. It affects us in the daily. And I think there's this misconception that what happens in the bigger picture, what happens in Parliament, policies that get pushed through, that they don't actually affect you. They really affect you. They affect the money that's financed for like social services. They affect like schools. They affect like whether or not you can even afford to go to post-secondary. It affects you.
You just got to think about how are things going to affect you in the future once you start paying taxes and once you start contributing to society. Kids don't really like to focus on that because it can be a scary thing, but I think if we introduce it in education system at a younger age, then it won't be a scary thing and kids will just see it as a natural part of growing up.
You should care because it does affect your community, it affects what happens to you tomorrow and in your future. And history shows that if you don't care, bad things are going to happen. That are going to affect you and can affect your life.
How to police the community.
Racial issues.
Transit is definitely huge.
Food security.
Recreation.
Housing, man.
Education, debt.
Youth unemployment.
You want to get involved, but you feel like, what can you really do, right? That's how you feel a lot of the time, It's like I feel like I would love to be involved in like some kind of big movement that was making changes in Canadian politics, but I'm not going to do it by myself. I feel what got me to get involved in like grassroots level is just me wanting to be able to actually help and not rely on the government or my vote for them to put something that has to get passed through like 300 people before, you know, some community money gets sent down and they clean up the garbage in the neighborhood. Oh, why don't I just go with like a group of people and clean up the park myself? I don't need the government to pay for it, right? So it's time that people start taking action into their own hands.
I think the most visible way to do it, to involve youth, whether they are of age to vote or not, is to take to the streets. It's a big, bold move, and it lets politicians, all of them, know that we are watching and we are listening.
We went to a Ward 6 meeting, and it was about the budget for Ward 6. All of us, all of the youth, actually went and sat in the front. They showed the budget was raising more towards the police and less towards youth centers and things like that. I felt that I could stand up because I know I need more places to go after school and things like that to keep me out of trouble. If you just added funds from that into different places for youth to go instead of police, you could keep youth off the streets and put them into a nice, safer place and also build them up. Later that year, we actually went to a city hall meeting, and they actually planned to increase the budget for youth centers and things like that. So I think that with us speaking on that, it actually helped them change their mind, and it actually led to something being done about it. So I feel that my voice is actually heard, and it makes me feel that if people stood up for what they believe in, they can actually make a difference.
Taking charge of what you want, knowing what you want, and asking for it. I look around, and there are so many things that are not working. And I thought, this is the time. If I'm not going to say anything, who else is going to say on behalf of me?
You feel like there's a certain problem with the government about the way it's run, and you have a solution to your community, then you can go pitch that solution. You can write a letter. You can get involved somehow. You can make a service group and all go together down to City Hall and say, hey, listen, this is what we were looking for, and we think this is a good idea, and we think this is achievable. So please consider this. And you might not get what you want, you might get turned down, but the fact that you're getting involved, people are going to remember that.
Making sure that you always are active, that's the only way your skepticism could be diluted, because if you're not active at all, and if you don't really do anything, then these promises weren't made for you, and you shouldn't feel bad that these promises weren't being kept.
When I started getting involved with politics and community issues, I'd always be relaying it to my friends. So at the time, none of them really even cared, but when I brought it up, it was very effective, and it'd bring conversations that we were never having before. The power of being able to inspire and create change within others and just educate others.
Another thing that's very important is to see more young people engaged in politics, like a lot of young people who would actually try to take that office position, actually at least campaign for it.
We have privilege to live in a society where we're able to be vocal.
I see younger generation, younger than myself, actually becoming more active in fighting social issues and things like that. So I think we have good hope.
When you get a lot of passionate people together, and I've experienced this through when I do my volunteer work, anything can happen, and it all really just depends on just one original starting person.
The reality is that we don't matter to them. We have to come to a conclusion within ourselves that we do matter, and we need to rise up and do something about it.
I want a city that actually listens to the people. I want a government that is run by the people. I want a government that is meant to help people.